Hey there, it's Gary. Welcome to the next edition of the Geezerville Chronicles. If I'm successful over the next 6 months, I'm going to launch a chronicle about an edition, a new issue about every Tuesday of every month. Here's something that I want to state up front. I'm not here to waste your time. And therefore, you ought to kind of get an idea of what's going to happen down the road in terms of the topics I'm going to talk about. Okay, now let's look at some of what those topics might be, because you deserve, I'm not here to waste your time, so you deserve to know what some of the things are that I'm going to talk about. With a little sass maybe, and hopefully some humor and other little elements of wisdom thrown in. Okay, here we go, and I have to look at these notes. The first one is dealing but not dwelling on post-election blues. I know I went through a valley, and I'm still in that valley, but I think I'm coming up, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that journey. The next one, here's one off the wall. It's called The Sorcerer's Apprentice and Mickey Mouse's Dilemma. You don't want to miss that one. And then there's Taylor Swift's art. You know, I see Taylor about every other day when I do my exercises because I play her music a lot in the background. And it got me to thinking about what really is her art. And that led me down a track that I want to share with you. The next topic you don't want to miss. It's called Marriage and Martinis. It's a good one. And then we go from Marriage and Martinis over to Witches. And I'm going to do one called The Hammer of Witches. And then the next one I've got on my list here is knowing when to let your instincts run. That's another kind of topic I'll talk about a lot. And one adjacent topic to that is switching gears, you know, jumping off cliffs in your life, you know, when to do that and when not to do that. Those are some things I'm going to talk about from personal experience because I jumped off a lot of cliffs in my time. Next thing is hummingbirds on wires. And the next one I've got written down here is the AI tsunami. That's the coming wave of technology that's about to wash over all of humanity, and it won't miss the shores of Geezerville. The last thing is kind of a central theme so that you'll know how to receive some of the information I'm sharing. I'm really someone who's been curious all my life, not only with learning, but with creative processes. So I'm going to talk a lot about art and creativity and science and those kind of things, you know, especially artificial intelligence and how it's going to impact all three of those areas. So that's it. Those are some of the teaser topics. And if you think you might be interested, I would really appreciate it if you'd consider subscribing to my channel. And there's a reason for that. It's not monetary. I'm not here to pitch or sell products or sponsor products. I'm not sponsored. So why do I want to do that? Because if I get enough people interested in my channel, it enables some capabilities on the platform that I can use free of charge, essentially. So it's sort of one of the enticements that Google has for YouTube for the content creators. And if I get, say, the first 1,000 subscribers, it really helps me a lot. And it helps reduce my costs. It helps give me some more flexibility. And I'd really appreciate it if you might consider helping me once you view a few of these videos. A subscription would really do the trick. So I'm going to end this right now. And thanks a lot for your time. And I look forward to hosting some more stories down the road on the Geezerville Chronicles. Harari talks about information technology and how information is sort of like a connector between people. And he draws a comparison on some of his post interviews when he was promoting his book. He mentioned, you know, we live in a sea of information, most of which is false. It's either myths, fantasies, fictions, and whatever. And the reason that is because truth in the form of information is extremely difficult to obtain because it requires money, resource, time, and it can be painful, right? The truth can be painful, and it's usually complicated. You know, we live in a world that's mostly gray, and so finding truth in this vast sea of information is really difficult. Then along comes the newest information technology out there, which is generated by an inorganic brain. We call it artificial intelligence. Now, I'm a user and a proponent of AI. In fact, I have ChatGPT 4, and I use it extensively now. I don't use search anymore. I don't use Google search at all because it's slow and it is more complicated to interact with. So why am I going down that path? Because if we live in a sea of information, who decides what is truth and what is fiction? Well, in the past, we've developed bureaucracies to be able to interpret and to help the general public understand and differentiate between fact and fiction. Now, I'm a former scientist, right? If there is such a thing as a former, but I am a scientist at heart. And science generates all kinds of information. Now, how do you know it's true? Well, you don't know it's actually true, but what it does have built into the institutions that surround science are self-correcting mechanisms. So if you throw a scientific paper out there, it gets reviewed, it gets critiqued against all the other types of information in its field. So if there's an error or something is wrong, it gets corrected. And that self-correcting mechanism is really important. And our bureaucracies upon which our democracy stands, like the Food Drug Administration, Health and Human Services, all of those departments are bureaucracies that have a vast amount of information about people all across the country. So, how do you know what is true and what isn't? Well, I don't think you do. Which you don't have to obtain power because you have information based on truth. Power is derived from people believing something to be true and then committing to it. So I thought, it would be fun to do a little experiment. I took the idea of the US Constitution. Now, it's a document. It's a piece of information. It took a lot of energy, a lot of effort to craft this Constitution, which is actually fairly short. It's got a preamble, and everybody knows we the people, and it's got, 7 articles and, say, 26, 27 amendments to it. And people argue all the time over what it means. So that's kind of like the self-correcting mechanism, and we have the courts, etc., etc. So, and we know that in the United States, most people believe in that Constitution, even though they don't understand what a lot of the articles are about or why they're there. They believe because that's the mythology. That's what you do if you're a citizen in the United States. And we expect any of our elected representatives to swear an oath to that Constitution. So now, I decided to take my ChatGPT 4 and ask it a couple of questions. I said, hey, give me an outline of the structure of the U.S. Constitution. And it spit it out in a matter of seconds. And I looked at that and I said, okay, now give me an alternative version of that Constitution that is based on the fact that there's been a vast growth in population since it was written, since there have been centuries of technology that have developed since it was written. Our population is more diverse. The costs of the infrastructure have increased enormously. So given all those factors, write me an alternative draft of the U.S. Constitution. And in a few seconds, out pops this Constitution. And I read through it. Actually, it was damn good. It was really a very thoughtful document. Now, I can't remember all that it said, but here's the reason I'm suggesting that's an unusual kind of story. Because with having an artificial intelligence which can't feel, it can only manipulate information that it's been fed. It can only infer new ideas based on the information it's fed. So what is going to happen as more information enters that sea of information above which our democracy sits? And an inability to connect truth and people and let them understand the difference between fact and fiction is kind of a formula for chaos. And I think that's one of the hidden threats behind our huge capacity to generate information that is cheap, doesn't have to be truthful, can be promoted, and people can believe in it, unite around it, form governments around it, form organizations around it, and none of it can be true. That's a lot to think about. But I thought I'd share that story. That's all for now. Till next Tuesday, see you then. Every day is special, and it's your turn to make some hope and share it with somebody else. Thanks a bunch.